Welcome to Aural Hygiene. It is the podcast where we look at educational films, experimental caught films, interesting documentaries. This is Matt here on the other end of the iPhone. No iPad mic is Mark Malek. Hello, Mark Malek.
Oh, the California champagne, Paul Masson.
Oh, he's already getting into the Masson.
There's your visual.
Wells.
There's your visual. There's your visual joke for your podcast. Hello,
visual,
everybody. You can see that bottle of Paul Masson.
Yeah, we're getting into some Orson Welles today. Future Shock, which was originally a book, which I did not bother to read. Have I read the book? I don't even know. If I didn't read it recently.
I haven't read the book, but it's easy to find interviews about the book and reviews of the book and interviews with the author of the book, which I did read some of.
And there is a 10-year.
He seems like a cool guy.
There's a 10-year after Future Shock.
He did 3
documentary. 3 of them. Okay, see, I didn't even know that. So
he did 3 books. I don't know about the documentary, but he did 3 books.
He did at least 2 movies.
Yeah, and the Wikipedia section of things named Future Shock is very long.
So what happens in this Future Shock? What's the point of this Future Shock?
Orson Welles is here to tell you about how nothing is permanent anymore, and people are shocked and freaking out, can't deal with it. And I guess his wife left him.
That's what I always assume. Because everything he says, it sounds like his wife just like suddenly left him this morning. Nothing's permanent anymore. Things you thought that were stable just fall apart. But so I actually
don't live at home.
I actually went looking at Wiki, and he was married from like I think 1955 to 1985. Though he did have a running affair from 1965 to 1985. So he had 2 women at this point.
I mean, in my head, it's always him in that scene from Citizen Kane, like destroying his wife's bedroom after she leaves. It's just that over and over his whole life.
This movie is that.
What a great movie.
This is
this is not as good as Citizen Kane.
But it's the
I'll just go ahead and go on a limb out there.
Future Shock movies.
It's a Citizen Kane of Future Shock movies. Yeah, it's what is it, 45 minutes long?
Yeah,
doesn't feel 45 minutes long.
No,
that's a really high compliment for an educational type documentary film.
I think this was I think this was maybe a primetime network thing, but a special presentation by whoever. So like I don't know. See, I've been in Japan too long. NHK does this sort of thing like 8 times a week, but now that I'm saying it sounds weird in America.
Yeah, we don't like education. We only like to scare you. All of our education is like, don't do that.
Well, this does that,
It kind of does, but it kind of doesn't. I feel like it does really interview a lot of people, like the whole group marriage scenario. Everybody seems pretty happy in the group marriage.
Yeah.
Orson Welles is just there to tell you that, even marriage is under attack.
Because I just got divorced, which he didn't, but I just got served my papers. What do we have here?
I was dropped by Paul Masson.
My notes, but who's the daddy? That would be, if they start having kids, that might be a bit of a conundrum. It's like looking back, some of my environmental education gigs were like temporary communes, which I just talked about in another podcast, but whatever. Tom Dip. Oh yeah, and then the gay marriage, Tom, Dick, and Don. Sadly, this wasn't a real thing for another 40 years. So
yeah, and genetic. Well, yeah, there's a lot to dissect here, but it's pretty interesting that
temporary encounters on a Danish nude beach.
It's interesting how hitchhiking is presented in kind of a negative, considering how many people hitchhiked and got murdered in the 70s.
Yeah,
that was like a large part of all
many people all hitchhiking in the same spot. What's up with that? Go down the street a little bit. Yeah, but I would think. Wouldn't there be like a hitchhiker code? Like, this is my spot. You need to like go down the street a little bit.
Well, okay. Let's get to the good of the film first. It does.
No, I want to talk about hitchhiking. No, just,
Okay,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It does at least attempt to start to address PTSD, which is really ahead of its time. I mean, it's true that there was a lot to take in the 70s. Things were changing pretty fast, especially compared to now, where, we still have Star Wars movies. Like, what's up with that?
And this movie seems okay with gay marriage as long as you don't mind Orson Welles' disapproving stare while you're getting married. But
I mean, he didn't even want to play Unicron.
No, they gave him his own another bottle at Paul Masson, I guess.
He was just like, I don't know, they have me voicing some kind of monster planet.
How could you go about being a monster planet?
It was one of his last interviews. I think it might have been his very last interview where he was just like, I don't know, they have me playing some kind of ball. Glug, glug, glug.
Yeah, I like the movie theater guy. Everyone loves X-rated films, especially when they're pornographic.
That was awesome how he looked like just a carnival barker guy or something. He looked like he had such a carnival mustache.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, you were mentioning the genetic arms race ends in the eugenic wars, I believe.
Well, my reaction to that was be pretty cool to edit it if your kid was going to be born with like their organs on the outside or something like that. It'd be cool to like just go ahead. He doesn't really address how that would actually help some people.
No,
the whole thing, it feels really editorialized. Like he was very judgy about pacemakers and prosthetic limbs. Oh, well, now one more step to an artificial man. Pacemaker.
Do you want your robot legs?
I want if I need robot legs, I'm gonna get robot legs if I can get.
What if you don't need them? You just want them.
I mean, you want the robot to have them?
No.
Like, how would you do that? Just put them on your back?
No, you'd actually have your legs replaced with like Terminator legs.
I know that's somebody's jam, but I'm not really into it.
Okay, just curious. But yeah,
that will come eventually. But yeah, not super into the whole cutting legs off part.
And the guy talking about it was like the psychobiologist. I'm like, I'm the psychobiologist, bitch. That is that's what you say when you go into a party.
I'm the psychobiologist, bitch. It's time for Paul Masson. Yeah, there was that, and the whole thing where he went really far when there was the CPR training dummy, and he was like, "This is the next step towards an artificial man. This training dummy."
Yeah, I did think it was funny when they were showing, robotics.
Yeah, that's the whole thing is. Educational films from the United States are all about reaching. It's like, oh, but what about this? Soon we could be in hell.
Then they show us like that Commander Data prototype. That was fun.
Yeah, the arm was like it was just, there was a delay, as if that robot was going to fight you.
Oh, here, I just found this note. You were mentioning the having the organs outside the body, where my note was programming the IQ of your baby. Someone had to just be like, ha, 69.
No, 169.
No, that's not as funny.
No, it is, though, because then you can have a smart baby and you can make the 69 joke, and they can make the 69 joke the rest of their lives. If their IQ is 69, they may not be able to make the joke.
Well, the parents in this case are probably already like at that IQ level, so like 69,
like they're 69, yeah, bro.
Yeah, son, I passed this down to you. But yeah, that seemed weird because people would just keep choosing higher IQs until that became some weird part of problem. Again, that's how the eugenics wars happen, man. Which is
that's how we got Khan, dude.
Exactly. Khan's a smart one. He's a sharp one. Two-dimensional thinking, but yeah.
Yeah, maybe he didn't know when to quit, but he was pretty smart.
Right. One thing. One earlier in the film with Orson groaning and grumping about things being knocked down, and I'm like, well, in Japan, they're always knocking down and rebuilding things. Again, if you go to the the temple that's 1,000 years old, that building's only probably like 50 years old.
Yeah, there was it's really ironic that he was talking about, like, look at all these modular buildings, and mid-century architecture is the most disrespected. Like, we just had, I can't remember the name of the architect. I think it was like Marcel Brewer or something like that. Please don't come at me, brutalist fans. But the library in Atlanta was the last project by a very famous brutalist architect, and they just put windows in it.
Well, you want to see out. You got to see out through the brutalism.
Well, this is the thing, is that it was sort of a desecration of the original intent, but basically public opinion was kind of evenly split between, like, this is blasphemy, or this is fine, or tear the whole thing down, it's an abomination.
I know in Japan they've long since gotten rid of the Imperial Hotel, which was one of Frank Lloyd Wright's biggies. There's knock it down. So
I like brutalism personally, even if I can't necessarily recite the name of every brutalist architect. But
settle for 5.
Yeah, the kind of stuff that Wells was shitting on is more in danger now than what it replaced, probably.
So maybe 1971 looked more like the future than 2021.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we do have things like Wendy's and McDonald's that are kind of look like Frank Lloyd Wright ripoffs now.
Yeah, but especially the modular stuff had that very futuristic look. I think one of those was on the cover of a Real Estate album or something.
Yeah, if someone in your neighborhood in America, like, tears down a house and builds a big giant thing, it's like kind of 50-50 that it might be one of those things.
Would you be buying the 4-track or the 8-track tapes?
4-track tapes.
Okay.
I don't know what that means. Why do you ask me that?
Just when they were in the store, there was an ad that they showed for a second. It was like 4-track or 8-track.
Oh yeah. I mean, 8-track tapes are good in theory, but it's just so hard to choose.
Right.
Between 8 tracks.
I do want to bring up at the end, we get Orson Welles' head superimposed on like a DNA molecule. That was pretty fun. See, I was fucking with the astrologer, like I was missing trippy visuals. They didn't like trip out on the visuals so hard. Whereas this gets it because they got the digital art and Orson Welles' head and a DNA molecule. That was cool stuff.
Yeah. That was I didn't even realize DNA was something they were really thinking about back then. It's just DNA. I don't know. He said DNA was possibly the most important thing that would come about in our lifetime. And that pretty much is, if only because you can catch people murdering with it. That's pretty important. Well, you have to assume that's saved people's lives by driving down.
I mean, there's other stuff too, but yeah, I think it's more than just that. But here's a very clear 1971 was actually more futuristic. Supersonic transport of the future. Wait, are they showing you Concords and stuff?
Yeah, Concords #canceled.
Exactly. So
Concord said a racist slur. It's out of here.
Yeah, it was rude to a flight attendant.
Yeah, that like
plane itself. Weird. It was like Monster House or something, right? Monster Concord.
It was weird seeing it after so long. Like its bent nose reminds me of like a plague mask.
Right.
The bird.
Speaking of which,
maybe everything does.
So he flies to France and he goes to his house. Do you think he's just going there because like he knows nobody's there, like he's breaking in, like that's what Orson Welles does?
I think the whole thing, the vibe Orson Welles gave off was, I'm just going to kind of riff on things that I kind of gathered from the book, and you're just going to follow me and film me saying what I sort of remembered. Because he felt very unprepared for this.
Yeah, at the end, I'm like, finish up, Orson. The people who live here are coming up the driveway right now.
And did you notice how he barely ever made eye contact with the camera? I mean, maybe that's some kind of professional thing. Like it's unprofessional look at the camera, and he just can't make himself do it. But it's a documentary, man.
I don't watch her videos. I don't know what I'm looking at when I do these podcasts. This thing with Zoom, it's like apparently it's an age thing too, depending on what like teenagers will like do it a one way, and other people do it other ways, and people that are really senile are like just assume that the person's in the room with them.
Well, he had a really, in all the commercials he did during that period, he had a really weird way of like kind of positioning himself so he was completely sideways, and then his head was tilted forward.
He wanted you to get his good side.
I guess it just looks so weird. It just looks like he's just some kind of weird like cave
Wells
painting
monster.
or something. Yeah.
And he was such a handsome cat. Him and Marlon Brando is kind of like, what?
Yeah, well, can't explain it. I was going to say something about mental illness, but I just don't know.
Man. Okay, is that where Leonardo DiCaprio is heading? Is he going to be is he going to physically become the next Brando?
I don't know. I feel like he's
Tom Cruise, Keanu Reeves still like seem to almost pass off as youngins. I mean, you can see those little tense lines and stuff, but yeah, DiCaprio is definitely going into older man mode. He eats a few bags of chocolate chip cookies and downs a couple of those Paul Massans you got there, and he's there.
I think Val Kilmer may have been heading there.
Definitely Kilmer. No, Kilmer definitely did that.
Okay. Because he was, it's the fun thing where he was in the movie with Brando, and then he sort of just took the and
Brando then passed the curse along.
And then if you've watched Color Out of Space, which is Richard Stanley's return from 20 years of exile,
I did a whole podcast on that, man.
Yeah, have you seen any interviews with him lately? He seems like he's pretty weird now. I mean, he was always weird.
Well, I was gonna say he's a director though, so I'm talking star power that gets weird.
But he's also a celebrity because he became famous for the documentary on Dr. Moreau. So it's
true.
He's a if it wasn't for that documentary, I wouldn't have necessarily known that he was the guy or known what his story was. I just knew that.
I did the podcast, I did my research and then worked it out. But so I didn't know watching the movie, but yeah. Anyway, I hope he gets to make more of those. That was some cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, I feel like he could I think he wants to make 3, and I feel like that could be his Apocalypse trilogy, like his because there was so much Prince of Darkness and Thing and Mouth of Madness in that film that he could really do his own thing. And those are 3 of probably I think the Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy is probably, all of those are my top 50 easily.
All right. But yeah, so Lovecraftian future shocker. Lovecraft gives you the future shocker.
Future shocker. Twisted future shocker.
Twisted. Okay.
I think maybe celebrities doing that, whatever that was, the weird downfall thing, is something that was very specific to pre-internet. And what happens now is Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
So like Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise may or may not be having sex with fish in bathrooms.
Okay, that seemed like a good moment of silence.
That's true. No, I mean, yeah, he may or may not.
How does that work?
But he's, I don't know, man. Just lots of blind items about it.
How big are the fish?
Good size, like trout.
Oh, okay.
This is, allegedly. I mean, it could be that one person made that up and then everyone else ran with it. But
hey, man, as long as he's not hurting the fish and the fish are into it, right?
But we could all agree that Tom Cruise is definitely really weird and putting off like a kind of a creepy vibe, and even if he isn't outwardly, but you can also do things like just get personal trainers and work out super hard.
Right. That of course helps. I guess we're leaving Orson in his sad tears with a bottle of Paul Masson here. So,
all right. Don't leave me.
Turn off the camera. I'm passing out now. I know that is the charm of this one. It's just such a weird Orson Welles vibe. Like you get the commercials, but this is like 40 minutes of that,
Yeah, he's competent, but it does feel like he's kind of making it up, even though it does have a basis in a very beloved book.
It's like he's not quite phoning it in. He's just like so distracted by something else, which is why I think I always assume like he must be getting a divorce this time, which again was not correct, but maybe he had some emotional turmoil, or maybe that's just good acting. I don't know. He wanted to really seem torn up about this whole Future Shock thing. I guess that's what it was. But
well, you can bet that someone has read the book and has been screaming at this podcast the entire time.
Right, but it's a podcast. We recorded this like weeks ago, man. You can't just scream at us like that.
Well, people do scream at podcasts. They just, we just can't hear them, and that's why podcasts are good.
No, usually
if we could hear them screaming, it would be terrible.
I found myself when someone says wrong information, like, this was done by like Orson Funk, I'll be like, Wells, or they're waiting for it. Oh, Orson, what's his name? Oh, Orson Welles, Orson, that's what I usually
Orson Scott Card.
Yes, there we go. Everyone loves him.
Do you think they were friends? Probably not.
Oh, it's the Orsons coming down the street. Yeah. Okay. Hey, with the Orsons.
Do you think he was drunk for Mork and Mindy?
I think everybody's. I don't think Robin Williams was drunk for Mork and Mindy. He was busy doing lines.
Yeah, he may have been doing something.
Everybody else was drunk. Especially Jonathan. You're not thinking of Jonathan Winters, are you?
Jonathan Winters? No, I don't think. Well, now that you mention it,
I think you're thinking of Jonathan Winters. Drunk. Yeah.
Jonathan Winters probably was drunk, but no, wasn't Orson Welles the voice of Orson in that show?
That could be, dude. I think when I last saw that show, it was like first run, man.
I thought that was part of the thing. It was like, whoa, it's Orson Welles being someone called Orson in the show. Now someone else is screaming at the podcast saying you're correct or you're incorrect.
Yeah. And right now we just have no idea. Sorry. I definitely did not study Mork and Mindy for talking about Future Shock.
Well, you should have. You didn't do. Someone's screaming at you for not studying.
Why haven't you been watching Mork and Mindy? It's like, hey, when I was 3 years old, I loved that show. Haven't seen it.
Yeah, me too. I feel like if you liked Sci-Fi, you probably liked that show.
Yeah. So
back in the day.
There we go. Okay, as for this podcast, it's Aural Hygiene Pod at Twitter and Facebook, or I try make some future shocking music. That's at rovingsagemedia.bandcamp.com. And well, I guess you're making future shocking music too.
Hey, yeah, you may or may not find me at stunrunner.bandcamp.com. If you don't see anything there, then patience, please. Things are under construction.
Anyway, yeah, I put out like almost everything I record because I'm an idiot. So you could make that your new music collection. Only listen to my music if you want. And Stun Runner when Mark puts something up there. So. Yeah,
we're just our work ethics are just like completely opposite, and that's why we're podcasting together.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So whoever is screaming at me, no, that was not Orson Welles doing the voice of Orson on Mork and Mindy. It was Ralph James.
Not Rick James?
No, Ralph.
That would have been cool. They should have gotten Rick James. That would have been cool. Okay, so now we know. So
yeah, that would have been awesome.
Whoever's been, please go back and listen to our plugs because you were too busy screaming the whole
time. Thank you. That's so funny.
And now you know the true meaning of Future Shock.
People are not ready for being able to have IMDb on their phones.